I sit back and I just think, please appreciate what you've got, girls, because I was at a club where 2 nights before the season started, they pulled the plug on us.
When you were playing, would the girls not have said, Dani, you're going to be a coach one day?
No, they used to tell me, shut up. You know, when I was playing, it weren't pretty. We just had to get through the league. We had to stay in the WSL. And now I look and I get to see every single day I walk in the building, the calibre of player that is in the first team. It's just unreal.
It's Fran Kirby, the player for the big stage.
And it's the reason I came back then as a coach, because I just knew it was in the right place and it cared. And I think that's really important for the women's game, that you care about it.
So, Dani, you are now head coach of the under-19, women's under-19 team here. You had a little run at it. You were explaining to me as interim. You enjoyed it and you applied for the job full-time. You got it. What was it that you enjoyed about it so much?
I just enjoy working with young girls that almost want to just listen to what you're saying. Like they're like little sponges. And the group that we've got and the kids that are coming through, they're fantastic footballers. So I guess for me, it's just a great opportunity to try and help them. Like I really enjoy just trying to nurture players, and I did it when I was captain. Like I don't mind taking the younger players on board and like trying to help them as much as you can. So I guess I enjoyed the feeling of trying to make them better. Sometimes you don't always make them better, but you just try and help them. And then when you see them and they do something that they've been working on for like the last few weeks or the last few months, and it's just, it hasn't really been working out, and then all of a sudden they just get it. It's like a light bulb moment, and because they're so young, they're like so happy with themselves, and that means more than anything really. Like the results at our age is less relevant, but like watching them develop and grow and like obviously ultimately we want them to try and get into our first team, and that is the ultimate goal for us as under 19 staff. That's what we pride ourselves on really as staff and as coaches really.
How far ahead so is this generation of under 19s to your generation of under 19s?
I don't know how to compare it, but it's noticeable. So the coaching at the younger ages now, and the coaches coming through, and the girls' understanding and knowledge of like, not so much systems, but technical ability, ball manipulation, like understanding of out possession, what that means, 1v1 duels, like that was never really spoken about, especially in my generation growing up. It was more about, pass and move and simple things like that. But these kids coming through, they're unbelievable. Some of the things that you do, it just blows my mind. And I just think, oh my God, it's going to be good in a few years. I know it's going to be good. So, yeah, I don't know how to measure it, but the gap is certainly there. And it's great to see. And it's super exciting for me as a coach that I can get the opportunity to work with these sort of players, and then really all you're trying to do is fine-tune them because they've already got the capabilities technically on the ball. All you're trying to sort of do a little bit is the tactical stuff that comes as you get older within your game and you get to more like 19s and first team. The tactical stuff is quite big, but like their capabilities on the ball is just unreal, to be fair.
Yeah, because I was saying to Glenn before you came on that I go and watch quite a bit of women's football, and I would argue that over the last 2 years, the technical and tactical standard of professional women's football has improved faster than probably any other team sport has improved.
Yeah.
In
any other professional sport.
Any other professional sport. And if you went away for a year and came back and watched the same team in a year later, you'd say, "My God, that's not what I saw a year ago."
Yeah.
And you're in danger of sounding a bit patronising when you say that, but it's an actual fact, isn't it? That the rate of improvement is spectacular.
Yeah, and I have to say that is probably due to the coaching. So the coaches, their level of coaching and understanding and input and just general like all round coaching ability is probably the main reason why the girls now are at a higher level. I think we've also struggled physically. Well, now you don't see that. The girls physically can match that. The intensity of games, you can see it every single week now in the WSL. Like the intensity and the ability for high-speed running is there. So yeah, and I mean, like you said, you can come away from a year, but in another year, it's going to just go even further. And I mean, obviously I was lucky that when I played here, we came in and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't, you know, when we was playing, it wasn't pretty. We just had to get through the league. We had to stay in the WSL. And now I look and I get to see every single day I walk in the building, the calibre of player that is in the first team. It's just unreal. And I'm just like, oh my God. The young girls, the academy girls that get the opportunity to see them, that would just motivate me more than anything. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, no, it's fantastic to watch, and hopefully we can keep growing it and keep pushing it in the right direction with the right support and the right funding and just the right people to nurture it, because I think you have to have people that care about the product, and women's football is a product, and we just have to have the right people around it to sort of keep encouraging it, even in when there are moments where maybe the quality isn't always there. You still need to have people that back what you're doing and like understand the process that you're trying to get to, and that's one thing that Brighton has always done. From the moment I stepped in as a player, I knew that this was the right club that was willing to like support and push and just be a big advocate of the women's game. It was the one thing that brought me here from a player point of view, and it's the reason I came back then as a coach, because I just knew it was in the right place and it cared. And I think that's really important for the women's game, that you care about it.
It's so important that it's led in the right direction at the moment, because like we say, the growth is just so quick at the moment. It really is incredible. Talk to me about, obviously you're part of the pathway. Yeah. How much would it meant to you as a young girl to have the pathway that these girls have got now? But in all fairness though, you generationally are part of creating this pathway, aren't you? Yeah,
and people do say that. I guess you don't feel that. Does that make sense? You always just think, well, I was just doing my job, or I just did it because I loved it. And I suppose when I started, I just did it because I loved it. You didn't get paid. It wasn't a full-time thing. I just loved football so much. So now when I look and I see what we give the girls and the facilities and the all-round package that comes with women's football, I just think, oh my God, you're so lucky. And I guess sometimes I sit back and I just think, please appreciate what you've got, girls, because I was at a club where 2 nights before the season started, they pulled the plug on us. So I know what it feels like to have the women's team just stripped. So I'm like, girls, like, just appreciate what you got, because the opportunity and the all-round care that comes here, like, everyone wants the girls to achieve something. Everyone wants them to go on and just hit their potential that they can. And I'm just like, you got to sometimes give them a bit of a shake, haven't you? Because they do forget. Like, they're kids, aren't they? They forget, and they're like, oh, no, it's just like, it's just what you get. And then you're like, actually, girls, this isn't what you get. And we are so fortunate at this club with, like, the support and the backing. And I'm just like, please, just keep remembering where you are and what we've got here. So, yeah, I think it's, it's just, I mean, if I was a 12-year-old coming in and, Frank Kirby was in the first team, that would give me enough motivation to want to one day hopefully try and be on the pitch with her and play with her. So, yeah, hopefully it inspires the girls, and they've got now role models they can look up to, which for a lot of the generation we didn't. We had male players that we looked up to. So, yeah, hopefully it's it has its benefits, and we start seeing that anyway.
Where are you? So you're under 19s. Where are you finding your players? Where do you get them from?
To be fair, we have a lot of local girls. So we've had like our ETCs that are like soccer schools or camps that the girls come into, and then the foundation from the younger girls, younger ages, pick them up, and then ultimately, if they're good enough, then they come into our academy system. We've also looked around at South East London, so we have girls that come from London, and again, another thing like the club does, they put on a club minibus, they go pick them up, they drive them down, because obviously we still train 2 nights a week in the evening, so to get girls from South East London on a minibus down, that comes with all different sort of like situations that we have to deal with. But yeah, like, you just have to look round the catchment area. Obviously we're a little bit tired because half of our catchment area is the sea, so we can't go recruit in the sea, so we have to look 90 minutes around the outside.
Is that what it is, 90 minutes?
Yeah, so it's 90 minutes so it does, your hands are a little bit tired at certain points, but I think also like word of mouth, you know what I mean, like when you get to the under 19s level, you can sort of spread your wings a bit more, and you can recruit from further afield. And I think if you're a player that's maybe up north and you look at the package and what we do here and what we give the girls, I think that opens more avenues, and we get more players wanting to come to us and trial with us and stuff like that. So, but at the younger ages, from like 12 to 16, it's the 90 minutes, so we are a little bit tired, but we still go and find them. Like, it's we've got some absolute gems, honestly. Some of these kids are just unreal, and I can't wait till 4 years when they're old enough, and then I can start working with them. But I've got to be a bit patient with that. But yeah, so that's sort of how it works in the women's side in terms of like how recruitment happens.
When you talk about that 12 to 16 years in the academy, obviously you've alluded to the facilities and how incredible they are. Is it a worry that if it wasn't to work out here and they were to rock up somewhere else, it'll be a major shock for them?
Yeah, and I think what we tend to find is if unfortunately a player doesn't come through or doesn't progress and ultimately maybe leaves at under 14s or under 15s, they'll go to other training grounds, and sometimes it is a bit of reality check. But I think what you're now finding within most WSL teams and some championship teams, the facilities are now starting to be more women specific. So a lot of clubs have their own women's departments, which is great, right? So you're not just the one or two teams that are the bigger teams, I guess, but like a lot more are supporting the women's program, and I think that then helps the younger generation, but then makes our job a little bit harder because we can't recruit them as much. But I know full well, speaking to anyone that walks into that women's building over there, or even this building over here, like they're like, wow, like it just blows your mind. And obviously that's just credit to Tony that he's willing to back these programs, and he believes he knows what it means and he cares about it, right? So otherwise he wouldn't do it. But I think for some that do leave the program, there is a bit of a reality check that's quite hard for them at times. But yeah.
And how much of what you do on the coaching field is dictated by how the first team operates? Because in some clubs, obviously, you adopt the same playing style and the same outlook. Is that your job to make them? I think that's
the Brighton philosophy, the Brighton way. I think whether it's the first team or the men's team or the boys 18s or our girls 14s, we have a very similar style of play that obviously everyone knows about. We're not dictated to by what the first team do, but ultimately it helps to have a bit of a model that we can sort of start to work off. But I guess if you look at the first team calibre of players compared to an under 19s or 16, there's a big gap. So you also have to be able to be versatile, right? So certain players, we might not have their skill set to play in the certain formation. So then you have to be able to adjust. I think also from a younger point of view in a player, if we put the players into a bracket and tell them to play a certain way, then maybe when they come to 21, 22 and they've moved to a different club and a manager wants to play a different style, have we really given them the tool set to go and play a different style of football? Maybe not. So for a younger player, we know how we want to play out and we have a clear identity in our playing out philosophy, but we still have to be able to be versatile in the sense that what your squad gives you, it sort of dictates to you what you then play in terms of systems and formations and styles. But in terms of the Brighton brand, it's all about possession and being an attractive brand of football. But how that then works with different pieces, that's slightly different based off calibre of player that you've got, really. So
as a coach, you have got a little bit of freedom to put the team out how you wish.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I think as long as you also then justify why you're doing it, I think that gives you clear motive for why that's happened. Obviously in certain moments they might want to see a certain player in a specific position, so then we'll be like, okay, that's fine, we'll sort of dictate from what the first team want and stuff like that, but as a whole it's pretty free for us to work off like our own blueprint, if that makes sense. But it's quite good in that sense, but I think it's also it's very much based on who you've got players wise and their capabilities. So.
Are you in touch with Dario much?
Yeah, so we're all in the same building. Yeah, all in the same building. So it'll either be me and Dario or me and Chris. But I mean, like any first team manager, you're very busy, aren't you? Yeah. So he's sometimes like busy doing tactics or game plans. So then it'll be with Chris. But as a link between the 19s and the first team, it's quite close. And I think we have to be, because if they need players, then we got to be ready to give them players that are ready to step up with the first team. And then if they need players that are returning from injuries or anything and they need minutes, then we'll have a discussion and they'll come and play in the 19s league. So yeah, it's quite close, and like we've had chats about certain formations, and I'll be struggling with a certain thing that we're trying to do and he will help, and it's great, to be fair, that there is such a close unit, and it's not just like I suppose with Dario, he's willing to give time to every coach, which is great because we've all got same questions about a similar point of the playing style that we're trying to implement, and we all come up with our problems that we're facing in games, and Dario's there. He'll help us and sort of guide us and give his advice in that situation. So yeah, it's quite a close network of coaches over on the other side.
Does that ever go the other way with your knowledge of the WSL?
No, well, in all fairness, they knew if they'd like information, they'd be there. But Chris is obviously the assistant coach, and he's been in the WSL probably the same amount of time as I have. But he's obviously been a coach and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, if they ever asked and needed information on players or anything like that, then I would be happy. But the knowledge and the staffing over there, they all know what they're doing and stuff like that. So sometimes too many cooks, isn't it?
We should ask you a bit about your own career, very distinguished career. Arsenal and Chelsea, for example, international football. How do you reflect on that now? What were the highlights of your own playing career?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's when you stop. I suppose when I was playing, you don't really take into account what you're doing or where you're at and stuff like that. But it's when you stop that you start to realise, oh, blimey, actually I've done all right, really. So, yeah, I mean, I have to say I was so fortunate in my career. Like, I was coached by some amazing coaches that have really shaped me as a player and definitely now as a coach as well. In terms of highlights, there's so many. Like obviously getting your England debut or getting called up to the first England camp, I'll always remember that moment. And then I suppose I shouldn't openly say this, but being that we're a Chelsea family, when I got signed by Chelsea, it was a big deal to the family. Like I remember my dad came, my mum came, like it was a massive thing, and I was like, all right guys, no one's cared about it so far, and it's like you all turned up right now, so yeah,
tickets,
yeah, innit? Yeah, oh, my brother's getting free training kit and all sorts, so I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. But yeah, so that was quite a big thing for the family. But yeah, like as a whole, I suppose I was just so fortunate, like players that I played with, played against, and now I see what they're up to, and I think that's the footballing world, right? You might have met each other in football, but you'll be friends forever. And like, you know, I see them now, they're on Sky or they're doing comms or they're a coach, and I'm just like, it's really nice to see that so many have stayed within the game and can give back to the game that obviously gave them so many happy memories and good experiences. So, yeah.
Some people we get in here, some coaches sound like they were born to coach, and I must say you sound like one of those people. You sound like a natural coach to me. Would you agree, Glenn? So,
yeah, I do.
Yeah. So when did you decide, or when did you start to feel that you could be a coach at this level?
So it was when I joined here. Within the first year, I got like a bad injury, but it was one that I knew was going to shorten my career. I knew that it wasn't going to be like long term, and I had a period of not playing, and Hope at the time, who was my manager, was like, take that session for me, and I was like, absolutely not. I wasn't like, for me, I was like, I am not coaching, like I want to be on the pitch, stop trying to make me coach. And it was literally at that very moment, I remember it was on pitch 5 on the 3G, and we had like a in-house 11v11, and I was like, oh, I like this, like I wanted to be on the pitch, but I quite enjoyed the fact I couldn't. And I was like, oh, actually, this is all right, isn't it? So it was literally here, because if someone had asked me before that, I would have been like, absolutely not being a coach. Like, can't do it. I want to be on the pitch. I want to play all the time. But I suppose as you get to the back end of your career and you don't play as much, you're like, I still want to be involved. I still want to give back. And I loved like analysing my games and watching the games back and the detail I used to go into as a player. And I was like, you could just see that, I don't know, it just became natural that then I did my badges and I was like, oh, this is all right actually. And then the planning of the sessions and my thought process behind it. But in terms of a natural coach, I don't know if I'm a natural coach. You'd have to ask the girls if that's the case. But I do really enjoy it, and it's probably the closest I could be to still playing without playing. So yeah, I guess that's, yeah. I don't know if I thought I was going to be a natural coach or be a coach when I was younger. I wouldn't have said that.
When you were playing, would the girls not have said, Dani, you're going to be a coach one day?
No, they used to tell me shut up.
They're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore. No, no one ever really did. I think it was Hope that saw it, and it was Hope that really pushed me to go and do my badges and start doing, I think, my level 3, and then we did it with the 16 scholars, I think, and then we did my B with the 16 scholars, and then the A license also here. So it was kind of a full circle moment, because I did my B and I used the under 21s, or the under 16s. Then I did my A and I used the under 21s. And then it was like, oh, I've come back now and I'm the head coach of what was the under 21s, under 19s. And I'm like, it's a bit of a full circle moment really for me, really. So yeah, it's quite interesting. And then when I joined in December, some of the girls that I'd coached doing my A licence and B licence, they were like, do you remember when you used to coach us? And I was like, oh my God, I've come back.
That's nice, huh?
Yeah, it was really nice. And they were like, oh, we really loved your sessions and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's good, because you're permanently stuck with me now. So yeah.
There you go. I told you you're a natural coach. And obviously everyone at this club emphasises the pastoral side of it, looking after players as people. And you're dealing with an age group that, you know, it's a fluid age for anybody, male or female. Do you enjoy that side of it, just making sure they're okay as people?
Yeah, I think that's probably the area that I've had to develop the most coming into the role, because I suppose what I'd come off the back of is playing in a first team, and then I obviously went and then coached in a first team at West Ham. So then that side wasn't as needed, because you're working with like elite players, adults.
More direct communication.
Do you know what I mean? It is,
it?
yeah. Like they don't need me to put my arm around them and make sure they're okay. And so coming into the role, it's probably been the biggest development area for me. Is like understanding, actually, you've got school, you've got to travel, and you've got exams, and you've got these stresses, and you've got this going on outside, and you just don't remember that as like when you was a player. So yeah, like the wraparound that we have here is just it's something that the support of the rest of the coaches and the staff around me have helped, and I now understand the reasons for it and the pressure that the young kids are under. And we have to keep remembering they're young adults, right? So I'm working with literally 15, 16, well actually 14, 15, 16 and 17-year-olds. And that's quite an age range as well. So they all have different stresses at different points. And I guess as well, you have to be lenient to that. Sometimes they just have a bad day, and it's okay to have a bad day. Like, I mean, I suppose when you're in the first team, you can't afford to have a bad day, right? You have a bad day, you're out of the team, and you just can't, can you? Like,
true.
And then so I'm like, actually, just you got to give them a break. So yeah, the staff around me really help with that understanding and just remembering they're like kids. So yeah,
the reason I'm smiling is because as a player you are so mentally driven, aren't you? And I think all professional players, men or women, lack a little bit of empathy, don't they?
Yeah. And
you need to tone that up as you sort of go into the academy, because like you say, you're dealing with elite players. It's direct communication. It's often under a lot of stress. There's a direct outcome to what you're doing. So a lot of it is it's a different, I suppose, style of leadership, isn't it?
And communication as well, right? So the way you communicate with them has a big impact. So some players, most players don't respond to like a first team style of communication. Not because they don't want to, they're just probably not used to it.
Do you think it's a generational thing?
It could be a generational thing. I think it could be not just football, right? It could be just worldwide. Like we're mindful of how we talk to the young kids these days, and we want to let them find their way in the world, rather than like when I was younger, it was like, no, you do this, you do that, you go here, you do that, you kick the ball there, you know what I mean? So yeah, I guess I'm having to adapt quickly to that, which is a good challenge. It's a really good challenge. Sometimes I probably could do better at it, but I'm really lucky that I've got people and like close staff around me that they support me, because I think if I didn't have that, I would maybe struggle a little bit with that.
So presumably you can make people tough enough but be empathic at the same time. It's not an either or, is it? Some people think that if you show too much empathy, you'll make the players soft or not resilient enough. And if you're too hard on them, you won't have any empathy. But you can strike a balance, presumably, can you?
Yeah, I think you have to, because I think if we're too empathetic, but they go into a first team environment and it's not like that, then again it comes back to the whole technical side. Are we really setting them up for the first team environment? Probably not. So, and also if you think about it, they're still a developing professional, so they have to develop, and this is part of their development of understanding actually that there is right or wrong, but in the moment, and how we address it and how we say it and the timing of it. So yeah, like you said, you have to get the balance and the moments, and obviously working with females as well, that can also be a challenge, because we all have different hormones, females, and that's the thing that we also have to address. Like, so yeah, you just got to be really conscious of the whole package, really.
Yeah. So Albion fans listening to this, with youth development coaches, the thing they always want to hear is, we'll be sending 5 or 10 players through to the first team. Don't you worry about it. There's a conveyor belt. I wouldn't ask you to name names, but could you tell listeners to this podcast that they'll be seeing players from your setup in the first team over the next 3 to 5 years? Oh,
for sure, definitely. I think we've got some really good high potential players. But like I said, they're like 16, 17 years old, and even younger than that, like 14, 13. So yeah, just be patient is probably the one thing I'm going to say. But we've got some unreal players. If we can keep hold of them, amazing. But like you said, there's always the chance, because we can't contract these players until they're 18 at the moment, that someone could come along and just take them. So we have to be quite careful and yeah. But I do think we've got some real like gems coming through that like will definitely make it to the first team. So
is this just me, or is that different to the boys?
I think it's I do think that is different to the boys.
The contract structure.
So yeah, with the girls currently to get up their first pro contract, it's 18, so on their 18th birthday. So, but I do think there's a conversation around around changing it and stuff like that. So, but
especially when I suppose, if you're fishing in the pond of South London, like they have got a lot of options which will be closer to home for them.
Yeah. No, they're obviously we are surrounded by other London WSL or Premier League teams that have maybe a bigger budget than us, and like they can obviously potentially give more. So we just have to make sure that we provide them and give them the most support, that they don't want to leave us. I mean, if I would, I'd tie them down, really, but I'm not allowed to do that. So
yeah, they can give them more in one respect, but in other respects,
yeah, exactly. I think we give them the bigger things, like club, So, and like that's the thing. If you talk to any players, they will always say like, whoever's been at this club is like, it's probably one of the best clubs I've been at. Like in terms of the whole package, how we're made to be treated and stuff like that.
I think Fran alluded to that. She was quite shocked, wasn't she, when she came?
Yeah. At least you can tell young players here, well, you can tell them lots of things, but you can tell them that they're in the right place to develop.
100%, yeah, 100%. Like, actually, as an individual and as a person, like, we care about you, and you won't get that in some clubs. Like, we actually really care about you, and we want to invest in you, and we want to give you time and everything like that, so...
Brilliant. Thanks, Dani. That's a very positive message to the people listening to this podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
you.